This story is about the encounter between a boy and a girl. The boy, Tom, is from New Jersey. Ever since he was a child, he believed that only by meeting his soulmate would he find true happiness. This idea came from his early exposure to sad British rock music. The girl, Summer, is from Michigan. But she doesn't have this idea at all. Ever since her parents' divorce, she has only loved two things. The first is her long black hair. The second is that she can easily cut her hair without feeling any pain. That day in the office, Tom met Summer. He almost immediately decided that she was the soulmate he had been looking for. Summer is the boss's new assistant. An ordinary girl. But in Tom's eyes, she is one of a kind. Their meeting in this big city of 3.8 million people could only be explained by destiny. But his friend tells him Summer seems very arrogant. Believing she's superior to others, acting aloof to everyone. Tom couldn't help but complain, "It's disgusting. Why do beautiful girls always think they can trample on others at will? Forget her. I don't care." However, 4 days later, Tom encountered Summer in the elevator, just the two of them. Tom turned his head away, pretending not to be interested in her. But Summer was interested in the song Tom was listening to. It was a rock band she really liked. She couldn't help but hum along. Tom was stunned, finding himself even more attracted to her. Summer was like a magnet, drawing Tom closer to her. Tom studied architecture in college. But he didn't pursue a related career after graduation. He was responsible for creating the greetings on the cards at this company. He was very skilled at this job. Hence, he was called Mr. Proficient. Summer, however, chimed in, "They used to call me Anus Girl." Tom was startled, and the drink in his mouth sprayed out. Summer quickly explained, "It was because I was very tidy and organized in everything I did." Summer was nothing like what he had imagined before. In summary, this girl was truly extraordinary. However, after just a few days, Tom decided to give up. When he greeted Summer in the elevator and asked her how her weekend was, she replied that it was great, emphasizing the word great. It sounded as if she had spent the weekend in bed with a fitness instructor. Perhaps people in love tend to become sensitive and suspicious. Tom felt that Summer was not interested in him and that he was powerless to change that. Although he said so, his eyes were always fixed on Summer. His friend suggested that Tom just ask her out, but Tom dismissed the idea. Soon after, the company held a karaoke party at a bar. Tom approached Summer and talked about some interesting things. Summer said that being someone's girlfriend felt strange. Women should have independence and freedom instead of being someone's accessory. Relationships between lovers can be complicated and often lead to pain. It's better to enjoy life while young and leave major life decisions for later. Upon hearing her words, Tom asked her what would happen if she fell in love. Summer replied that she didn't understand the meaning of love and that it might be the reason most marriages end in divorce, just like her parents. She didn't believe love existed in the world and thought it was just people's imagination. Tom, however, passionately said that he thought she was wrong and that when you feel love, you'll know. Tom then took the stage to showcase his singing skills, while Summer cheered for him from the audience. As they parted, a friend pointed at Tom and told Summer that he liked her. This was essentially an indirect confession from Tom. Summer asked him seriously if he really liked her. Tom smiled and admitted it honestly. Summer thought Tom was an interesting person, but she hoped that the affection between them would be that of friends. Facing each other, Tom didn't know what to say. Watching her walk away, Tom felt very conflicted. However, just 3 days later, Summer kissed him in the copy room. On the 34th day after they met, they went to a furniture store together. The spacious and bright living rooms and kitchens there seemed like their love nest. They passionately kissed on a large bed in the showroom, and Tom felt as if he were wrapped in happiness. However, Summer still told him, "I don't want a serious relationship, okay?" Tom simply replied, "Sure, we can take it easy and go slow." On their way back, Summer took the initiative to hold Tom's hand. After returning home, they unleashed their passionate hormones together. The next morning, Tom walked with his head held high and a radiant smile on his face. Everyone smiled at him, and the world before him seemed colorful. On the 45th day, their feelings for each other continued to grow stronger. On the 87th day, they watched a romantic movie together and tried different positions in the bathroom. On the 95th day, Tom took Summer to visit various architectural styles, and they sat on a bench on a hillside, taking in the breathtaking view. Tom said this was his favorite place, and he even drew the architectural structure on Summer's arm. On the 109th day, Summer took Tom home for the first time. For Tom, that night became a turning point in their relationship. The high walls that Summer had built to shield herself from genuine emotions were slowly crumbling. Tom entered her world, a place where few people had been invited. Summer even inadvertently revealed her inner thoughts to him, secrets she had never told anyone before. But Tom said, "I guess I'm not just anyone, am I?" In fact, Summer only wanted to treat him like anyone else, as they had agreed in the beginning. Tom grew increasingly uncertain about how to define their relationship. On the 118th day, he sought advice from his love guru, Rachel. She said, "It's obvious you want to get a clear answer from her, but you're just afraid you won't get the answer you want. If it were me, I'd rather know now than find another man in her bed someday." As Tom drove, he sighed heavily, appearing weighed down by his thoughts. Finally, he asked the question, "What are we to each other?" Summer laughed and said, "I don't know, who would care? I'm happy, you're happy, and that's enough." On the 154th day, Tom's love for her grew increasingly uncontrollable. He loved her smile, her hair, her knees, the heart-shaped birthmark on her neck, the way she licked her lips before speaking, her voice, and the way she looked when she slept. On the 167th day, Tom was filled with passion and inspiration at work. The greetings he wrote on cards amazed everyone, simply because they were genuine expressions of his feelings. On the 191st day, they went to watch a movie together. As they watched the happy wedding scene of the lead characters, Summer cried, unable to calm down for a long time. Later, they went to a speaker store, and Tom tried to hold her hand, but she dodged it. Before they parted, she kissed Tom. On the 203rd day, Summer officially broke up with him. She said that their time together was full of arguments and noise. Tom wasn't completely surprised by this, but Summer seemed as emotionless as when she cut off her beloved long hair. Tom, however, was furious and stormed off with a dark expression. Summer shouted after him, "Tom, you're still my best friend." That night, Tom vented his anger by smashing things at home. His friends advised him to forget Summer and move on, but Tom didn't want to forget her. He wanted to find a way to make up with her. On the 259th day, Tom invited Summer to have drinks at a bar. A man holding a bottle of alcohol invited Summer for a drink, but she politely declined. The man left unsatisfied and insulted Tom before leaving. Tom, enraged, punched the man, who retaliated with a punch of his own. In the end, Tom, with a bruised lip, went home with Summer. Summer criticized Tom's behavior at the bar, saying it was not graceful. Tom felt he had been hit because of her, but Summer didn't see it that way. She insisted that they were just friends. Tom disagreed with her, arguing that they had done everything that couples do. In his eyes, they were a genuine couple. But Summer refused to acknowledge the relationship, leaving Tom no choice but to walk away in anger. After returning home, Tom tossed and turned, struggling with whether or not to call Summer. At the same time, Summer was also unable to sleep, waiting for Tom's call. In the middle of a rainy night, the doorbell at Tom's house suddenly rang. Summer was standing outside his door, sincerely apologizing to him. Tom said he no longer sought to define their relationship but hoped they could have a deeper understanding between them. He didn't want to wake up one morning to find her changing her mind. Summer offered a passionate kiss and said she couldn't guarantee anything. Tom's heart was full of bitter love, but he couldn't resist her affection. Summer's rich romantic history made Tom extremely jealous, but Summer didn't care. To her, Tom was just one of her friends. On the 282nd day, when they went to the supermarket again, Summer treated Tom with an indifferent and cold expression. On the 314th day, Tom went to the movies without Summer, his heart feeling like it had fallen into a bottomless abyss of pain. By the 321st day, Summer had already left the company, while Tom was still consumed by his heartbroken feelings. His boss called him into the office because his recent performance had been terrible. Considering his current state of grief, the boss thought it could be utilized and assigned him a new task, writing eulogies for funerals. On the 322nd day, Tom felt that he loathed Summer. He hated her bright eyes and beautiful teeth, her 60s hairstyle, her plump and round knees, the cockroach-shaped birthmark on her neck, the way she pursed her lips before speaking, and her laughter. On the 345th day, Tom started going on blind dates arranged by his friends. The girl he met ended up becoming the recipient of his emotional outpourings. He went on and on about how much he loved Summer. On one hand, he wanted to forget her, but on the other hand, he knew that Summer was the only person in the world who could make him happy. He replayed their time together in his mind over and over, trying to identify the warning signs of their problems. He thought there were only two possibilities: either she was a wicked, indifferent, and perverse person, or she was an emotionless robot. At this point, the girl across from him asked a question: had Summer told him from the very beginning that she didn't want a boyfriend? A complicated smile appeared on Tom's face, and then he ran onto the stage, belting out a mournful British rock song. On the 402nd day, Tom took a train to attend a friend's wedding. Unexpectedly, he encountered a familiar figure on the train. He didn't stop but walked straight to his seat. However, in the end, he couldn't help but look back at her. Summer noticed him too, and she walked over to greet him. She was also attending the wedding and invited Tom to have a drink. Hesitantly, he agreed, and the train moved forward along the coastline. They sat face to face in the compartment, basking in the golden morning light, which illuminated their cheerful smiles. The love hidden deep in their hearts seemed to revive in that moment. Upon arriving at the wedding, Tom changed into a dashing suit, and Summer changed into an exquisite dress. The two sat together, joking and teasing each other's little flaws. Summer caught the bouquet thrown by the bride, and Tom laughed. Then they danced together. Summer invited Tom to attend her party the following Friday. On their way back, Summer snuggled against his shoulder and fell asleep. On Friday evening, Tom arrived at Summer's apartment as planned. He was still intoxicated by the promises of that night, believing that this time, his expectations would become reality. However, all his expectations were merely illusions in his mind. Summer didn't kiss him but gave him a polite hug. Summer didn't engage in intimate conversations with him but stood behind another woman. Summer didn't flirt with him but left him alone to drown his sorrows in alcohol. What was even more unbearable for him was that Summer hadn't rejected boyfriends or marriage as she had said. Instead, on her ring finger was a shiny wedding ring. Tom felt that he had been surrounded by deception and betrayal from beginning to end. Ashamed and furious, he held back tears and rushed out onto the street. His world was grey and devoid of color. On the 440th day, Tom went through his days listlessly and in a daze. He went out shopping in his pajamas like an old lady. The next day during a meeting, looking at the encouraging cards and greetings created by his colleagues, Tom complained, "It's these cards, movies, and pop songs that are the culprits behind our lies and heartache. People should express their feelings personally instead of using words in greeting cards. For example, the word love is meaningless." After venting, Tom decided to resign. On the 456th day, Tom started trying to pull himself together. He relearned the knowledge of the architecture industry and drew architectural designs on the walls. He began to work hard to find a new job. On the 488th day, Tom arrived at his favorite place and sat on the bench where he and Summer had left beautiful memories. To his surprise, Summer was sitting right behind him. She knew she could meet Tom here, and now she had also fallen in love with this place. She was always so whimsical. The biggest question in Tom's heart was that Summer had said she never wanted to be anyone's girlfriend, but now she was someone else's wife. This was something he could never understand. Summer said that she was surprised herself, but it just happened. One day she woke up and suddenly realized that something was missing between her and Tom. Tom turned his head away and tried to control his emotions. He said, "Do you know what the most heartbreaking thing is? When you realize that everything you believe in is a complete lie. Fate, soulmates, true love, fairy tales, and all that stuff is non-existent. Maybe you were right. But Summer laughed and said, I was sitting in a deli, reading a book when a man approached me and asked me about it. Now he's my husband, and I think it must be fate. So now I think you were right, you were just wrong to fall in love with me. After saying this, she gently placed her hand on Tom's. As she was leaving, Tom stopped her and said he sincerely hoped Summer would be happy. On the 500th day, Tom went to interview for a job. The girl sitting next to him was his competitor. She greeted Tom, but he wished her not to get the job. The girl laughed and said she felt like she had seen Tom somewhere before. At this moment, Tom thought to himself that there was no necessary connection between trivial matters and significant events, everything was just a coincidence. Coincidence determined everything. There were no miracles or fate in this world, and nothing was predestined. He invited the girl for a cup of coffee after the interview. The girl hesitated for a moment before agreeing and formally introduced herself to him. The 500 days came to an end, and Tom's love life ushered in a new day. 500 Days with Summer is a 2009 film directed by Mark Webb. The movie won the 2009 Golden Satellite Award for Best Original Screenplay and was nominated for Best Picture and Best Actor at the 2010 Golden Globe Awards. The film mainly tells the story of Tom's emotional journey from falling in love with Summer to losing her. An interesting twist occurs in the story. In the beginning, Tom firmly believed that love was predestined, while Summer did not believe in love or fate. However, in the end, Tom began to doubt fate and love, while Summer started to believe in love and destiny. In love, we often face dilemmas like Tom's. It feels like I never owned you for even a second, but it seems like I lost you 10,000 times. Or, we do everything couples do, but we can never become a couple because we are convinced that love is meant for the person who is destined for us. This is pure idealism, but reality is not like this. In fact, we fall in love with different types of people at different times. The so-called destiny is just meeting the right person at the right time.
So here, I would like to offer some advice to everyone. Sometimes, life is just like this, you meet someone interesting, but you miss the opportunity, and you may never meet them again. Don't ever think this is fate. Fate is just our self-adjustment after the fact. Fate may bring you together, but it won't give you an ending. There are not many interesting people in this world, so why not be a little bolder? Love is not easy, and the right person will not wait for you in one place. If you experience heartbreak, let it go. You can be sad, but you must remain clear-headed. It's not that love is not trustworthy, you may have just loved the wrong person.